For those that get to watch this a little bit later, we're just going to wait for some people to join in here. And today I've scheduled a virtual Friday happy hour, and we'll get going here in just a minute as soon as some folks show up, and we'll rock and roll from there. And so the purpose of tonight's event is to just kick back and relax a little bit and bring your favorite happy hour beverage. Hey, Jennifer, glad to see you're here. And for those of you watching already, what is your beverage of choice tonight? Mine is, hey, Shar, happy Friday to you too. TGIT, or as a friend of mine says, thank God it's today. My beverage of choice is Jim Beam Black. So we're going to do a little happy hour here. 1, 2, 3, and that's enough. And then we top that off with some Diet Dr. Pepper, of all things. Hey, Teresa, Diet Coke is your beverage, huh? Good for you. So we're going to mix this up, and we're going to St. James Velvet Red. I'm not. Is that Jennifer? Is that a wine? I'm assuming. And since I didn't bring a spoon into my office, I'm just stirring this with my finger. Good stuff. Oh, that's smooth. So anyway, and SoCo Manhattan. It's Friday. There you go. What's a SoCo Manhattan? Do tell. And in the meantime, I think it was Jennifer. Let me just take a quick look back here. I need to just jump out of my screen here, and no, that's not where I'm looking. Let's go back here, and brings me back. Hey, Sharon. And that's just fine. If that's and there's nothing wrong with that. Shar says it's a Southern Comfort sweet vermouth shake, a shake of bitters and cherries. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Let me see. I had a question, and I think it was Jennifer. Nope, that's. I think it was Jennifer. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh well, I think Jennifer. Did you have a question for me earlier? I saw it, I read it, and I don't have it in front of me right now. And I should have just done a screenshot and printed it out so I can follow along. But if you did, if you can ask that question again, I think it was basically that you're having problems with guys believing what you say, and they when you say don't irritate you or don't piss you off, they do what they can to irritate you. And if that is the case, older men being controlling. Well, there are some guys that are very controlling, and they were never taught that a relationship should be a joint venture. You should be there to enhance each other, not to be dominant or controlling. And while there are quite a few guys out there like that, there are a lot of good men out there that aren't that way. And it may be the circle of friends that you're running with that where you find these guys. It may be particular characteristics that you find attractive, only to find out later that they're controlling and or abusive. And so there could be any number of factors for it, but the minute they start to try to control you or try to antagonize you, that's the time to walk away and just say, nope, I'm out, I'm done, we're not playing this game. And it should be, if you want to give them if you want to give them a second chance, fine, but know that you have to set the expectations and the ground rules up front. You have to do that. And that's one of the things that I try to teach, is to recognize your triggers and what triggers you. And when they do that, you let them know, saying, listen, this is my experience. I don't want to go through this. And this is what happens when you do this. This is how I react. And I will not tolerate this type of behavior. And if they poo-poo it, or if they say, oh, you're just too serious, say, no, this is the way I am, and this is the way it's going to be. If you can't handle it, let's move on, without each other. So I hope that helps. Hey, Lindy, thanks for joining in. Willie, thanks for joining. Let's see, that's about midnight 30 your time, I think. And thank you. Thank you. This is a fleece. It was cold up here this morning. It's actually kind of cool today. I think it got up to about 55 today. For a high. It was 28 degrees here this morning, and I'm not ready for that cold. We had frost. Jennifer says, I do walk away, just tired of it. And I understand, but and part of the issue, Jennifer, is that if you're dating, if you're looking for your extraordinary mate or your soulmate relationship, you're going to end up going through a lot of guys, because too many people have expectations of, and you've probably heard me say this already, of I want to, I only want to date 3 or 4 or 5 people, and I just want it to be done. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this. But what I've come to recognize is that you have to go through this process if you want that extraordinary relationship. I recorded a blog, or I think it was this week's blog. I batch them 4 weeks at a time, and so I can't keep them always keep them straight. But it's one of the things that I find is that God, where was I going with that? I'll come back to it. Dorothy says hello. Gina says hi. Teresa says, why can't men and women answer a question when asked? Does it mean they have something to hide? It could be that they're insecure with the relationship so far. It could, it could be that they don't know how to take you yet, or it may be something they're not ready to reveal. And you guys are really sending in a lot of comments, great comments here. Jennifer says, one person said he liked to see me mad. I guess my eyes show it. Well, if he said he liked to see you mad, then man, that's somebody that would have been out the door. And I wouldn't have minded it hitting him in the ass as he walked out. That's just wrong. That's a terrible relationship, or that's a terrible person to be in a relationship with. Lois says hello. Deborah says, why do you think matchmaking sites or what do I think about? I've never heard of Talkify. But in general, Hang on, Deborah. I'm going to hang on to that. Jennifer asked, "Where are you located?" Right now, I'm in Ironwood, Michigan. I'm in the Upper Peninsula, and I'm just off of Lake Superior. So the colors are great, and we're going to be in full color here in just a couple of weeks. The colors are coming on. The temperatures are dropping a little sooner than normal. So. I apologize for jumping around, but I'm trying to stay chronologically in order here. So Deborah says, "What do you think about matchmaking sites like Talkify?" I'm not familiar with Talkify, but in general, I don't like any matchmaking sites. They manipulate. My experience with them, and can't remember if and I won't say any names, but there was one that guys spend about $2,500 a year for six dates a year. And you have lunch or dinner with somebody, and they do such a terrible job. Matchmaking, in my opinion, I've never met a good matchmaker. It's always been mediocre at best, and most of the sites there are just manipulating you for your based on your emotions, and they talk you into, well, you don't want to be alone forever, do you, Deborah? I know this has to be terribly hard on you. Why don't you let us find someone for you, somebody that you can love and honor and cherish, and yada 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 yada. And it's so hard being lonely and alone. They're very good at marketing like that. So I just don't buy into those sites, and everyone that I've talked to that has used those sites have had nothing but bad things to say. It was a waste of money. They went out with people that they never in a million years would have gone out with. Now, while that can be okay if you're casual dating, but if you're looking for a mate, that's not necessarily what you want to do. So let's see. Lois says, "By the way, I have a question." Let's put it up here then, Lois. Why do men set up and talk about other women when they're in the middle of a conversation with you? I'm assuming, Lois, that means they're talking about their exes or other women that they've dated. And if that's the case, they have not taken time to get past that relationship. And that's typical for guys. And it's one of the things that I try to teach everybody, that after a relationship ends, you need to take time to move on, or to heal and grieve the loss of that relationship, and then move on. God, you guys are just bombing me here. This is cool. Let's see. Dorothy says, or you get none of your business for an answer. Yeah, Dorothy, and if they say you get that's none of your business, then at this point in the relationship, it may not be. I don't necessarily know that I would take that as God, my glasses are crooked. There we go. I don't necessarily know that I would, or necessarily think I would take that as a bad thing if it's a new relationship. If it's an older relationship, you've been in it for a couple of months and you're getting comfortable with each other, that's something that should be a red flag, and you should be running from. Let's see. Antonio says, how do you feel about dating sites, and how about dating one person? Some date weekly with a different person. What's your opinion? Well, first of all, dating sites, Antonio, are just they're just a tool. And one of the things that I've come to recognize over the years is that most people don't understand how to use the tool, and that's why they get terrible results. And it's like giving a carpenter a set of tools. and giving a layman the same set of tools. Well, who's going to do a better job, the carpenter or the layman? You know, in the hands of a skilled carpenter, some very simple tools can create some very beautiful projects. Where in the hands of an amateur, they're going to have mediocre results. And the same thing happens with dating sites. And so consequently, you know, you have to become a bit skilled in using a dating website. And by skilled, I mean you have to spend time creating a great profile. You have to you're selling yourself. This is marketing 101. And what you have to do is what you're doing is and everybody on there is doing the same thing. The idea is that you're making an application for a lifetime, assuming you want a lifetime relationship with someone. You're making an application for a lifetime position in somebody's life. So you need to take time and create an awesome profile. You need to, and it doesn't need to be, you know, 1,000 words, 150, 200 words max. But you need to share a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you're looking for. And then the rest of the details can be filled in later, but you have to make it enticing enough that, you know, people that women want to be attracted or reach out and contact you. Use good pictures. Don't use pictures that are 10, 12 years old. Anything more than 3 years old is too old. And I've got sinus going on here for whatever reason. It's probably because the lights are on and the camera's on. So Antonio, you know, use good pictures, current pictures. You know, use a headshot for your primary profile pic, and then you know you should have at least a full body pic in there. Then, if you enjoy sports or any other activity, you know, have some pictures of you doing that or dressed in, you know, if you're into tennis, wear a tennis outfit, or soccer, wear your soccer outfit. And ladies, the same thing goes for you. You know, it's you know, use appropriate pictures. If you're a bicycler, wear, you know, stand next to your bicycle, you know, from a bike trip or a daily outing, whatever it is, but make it a good quality profile so that people know who you are and can be attracted to you. Deborah says, thanks. They do look expensive. Yes, they are very expensive. Typically, they might be less expensive. Excuse me. They might be less expensive for ladies and to draw you in, and then guys get stuck with the big bill. Teresa says, when you're in a relationship and want to know what they're doing on Friday night, but don't want to say, is that a big red flag? Or do I not need to know? If you ask and they don't tell you, that would be a red flag. You know, unless they have a surprise party planned for you. So you know, that would be a red flag. Lindy says, let's see, let me put this up. I had a guy try that on me. Don't you miss the companionship? You deserve to feel loved. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Well, yeah, that's right. And that's exactly right. And you have to, and Antonio, that's another part of the equation, is that you have people coming on to you and trying to will try to manipulate you. And the point here is that you have to, and this goes for men as well as women, that you have to become adept at discerning BS. You have to learn how to recognize the scammers. You know, the people that say they're overseas, they're missionaries, they work on an oil rig, and you know, there's any number of things that they're overseas, or their bank account has been locked down due to a coup in whatever country they're in. So that's that. So Lindy, thanks for helping answer that question for Antonio. Dorothy says that you moved on. Good for you. Nancy, thanks for joining. Dorothy said it was 3 years. Sharon is, let's see, let's put this one up here. Sharon says, I was one of this guy. I was one, and this guy asked me if I was divorced, and I told him no. He said he was looking for a woman who was divorced or not married. And I told him that I was a widow. He told me God will take care of people like me. Obviously, he was a jerk, and you dodged a bullet there, Sharon. That it's pretty simple. There are some people that are insensitive. They don't understand being widowed. Being a widow or widower, it brings with it special challenges, and I've experienced a lot of that through my financial planning practice, where I was a financial advisor for over 20 years, in helping widows and widowers deal with their finances, primarily after the death of a spouse. And the first thing that I recommended was that they not make any changes to anything for a year, because there's just a fog that comes over you. And, because all of a sudden your partner's gone, you don't know, and especially if they took care of the finances or took care of bills or whatever it is, you have to assume all that responsibility now. There's no more anyone there to help you make decisions or to make joint decisions with. So Jennifer says, let's pop this one up here. Jennifer says, dating sites, be very careful. I met one person who thought sex was a given. You have to be very careful who you're willing to meet and the time of day of meeting. I have had to space my car keys between my fingers for protection. Well, Jennifer, there is truth to that. And that's the process that I follow, is that you text for a short period of time, then you start talking on the phone. And one of the things that and being a guy, it's not as critical for me, but for a woman, you should be asking for his full name and his date of birth, and say you're going to do a background check, and that will scare off a lot of the creepers right there if they have a background. And depending on what state you're in, each state has their own different system. The state of Missouri has a system called CaseNet. And you can go into CaseNet and type in their name, and find every court case revolving around that person. And and I know in the state of Kansas it goes by each individual county. So and every state is different. So Jennifer, I'm not quite sure where you are, but just telling somebody you're going to do a background check, do a Google check, do a Google photo search, and there are a couple of other photo search sites that can help you find more information on somebody. So there are a lot of things that you can do on your own to protect yourself, even before you go out on a date. And a date should never be dinner. It should always be coffee or cocktails. And it needs to be in never have him pick you up on the first date. Never have him pick you up on the second date. Maybe not even on the third date. Make sure you're comfortable with who he is, and even before you meet. But with coffee or cocktails, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if it's not going well, you can be out the door. So, let's see. Let me go back here. Lindy says, I date multiple people to avoid committing to just one, but it's so exhausting. Maybe I'm not ready to settle down with just one guy. I seem to find something wrong with even the good ones. And that could very well be. But Lindy, I know a little bit about your situation, and I think you're doing the right thing. I think, I think, and it's actually a good idea for everyone, especially relatively new into the dating world, to date multiple people. You don't, and Antonio, I forgot. I'm going back to you. You asked about dating one person. It can be very exhausting to date more than one at a time. Personally, I have a very difficult time with more than one at a time, because I can't keep the facts straight. Even talking to just 3 or 4 people online at one time is can be a bit overwhelming for me, because I tend to try to find the details and get to know somebody and see if this is potentially a good relationship. So, Lindy, there's nothing wrong with dating multiple people if you can keep it all straight, and if you're finding something wrong, it's because their odds are they're not meeting your must-haves or have your deal breakers. And even the best of people, you can have great chemistry with someone, but little else. It's one of those things that it's extremely difficult to find somebody that you can develop an intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical connection. Somebody that speaks similar love languages. You have common interests, common morals and values, and then chemistry on top of that. So there are a lot of moving parts to relationships, and to find somebody with all of that is rare. And that goes back to one of the earlier questions, I think, from Jennifer about dating. And when you're trying to find an extraordinary relationship, you have to spend the time dating, and you're going to go through a lot of dates. A lot of them are going to be one and dones, quite frankly. So you have to be prepared for that, and I'm trying to set expectations for you. Don't go into dating thinking that you're going to find your forever love in 3 or 4 or 5 dates. It just, unless you're extremely lucky. And there are a couple of people like that, but the odds are, if you're like 99.5% of us that aren't, it's going to take a lot of dates. I think in the 10 years that I've been divorced, or 10 and a half years that I've been divorced, I've probably dated more than 100 different women. And I'm still looking. I'm not bragging on that. I'm just saying, you meet somebody, you go out, and maybe it's a one and done. You meet somebody, it might be, a couple of dates, and then it's done. It might be somebody you date for a month or 2 months, and then you recognize, nope, this isn't working for me. And I've had a couple of short-term relationships in there. One was 2 years, one was a year. So, Dorothy says, yeah, don't say you're 64 and show up 74. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I'm saying you make a quality profile. Don't lie. And women, it goes for you too. Don't lie. I've had a couple of women that have started out by lying with me. And even before we had a chance to meet, I said, nope, we're done. Because I was able to discern what they were saying and saying, well, no, this didn't match what you said last time. And so what's going on here? Triva, welcome. Triva says, Josh Cabernet Sauvignon. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Shar says, what scares me, excuse me, let me put that up here. What scares a man about being a widow? I was widowed 3+ years ago. I don't know that there's anything that specifically that scares a man away. But what I do notice is that when a woman is a lot of, and this goes for men too, but if you try dating too quickly, you're still wrapped up in your late husband, and that can be a turnoff. Um, a lot of times there can be assumptions that you carry a lot of baggage because you are widowed. Um, that there may be a lot of sadness, a lot of depression, which there can be, but it's not necessarily true. Lindy says, Sharon, I am also widowed. Others just do not understand unless they've been through it. Friend me, and if you want to support a friend, there you go. See, that's part of what this is all about, is finding friends in similar situations. Yeah, and what I find is that guys generally don't understand that women need to take time to grieve and heal. And I watch this consistently, that when women get to about the 2-year mark, or sometimes not even, sometimes the end of the first year, they want to get out and start dating, and they just don't recognize how much they have to go through yet. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of decisions, a lot of learning about who you are, and it's the same thing with after you get a divorce, but there's something deeper, and it just takes longer as a widow. And it's just my experience. I've experienced this for nearly 30 years now, over 20 years as a financial advisor, and 7.5 years as a dating and relationship coach. Let's see. Jennifer says CaseNet, good to know. Yep. And Treva, you got a long one here. Let's see what this. I didn't ask my question in advance, but I have a serious question, albeit maybe a boring one. There's never a boring question. Where do real people go to meet real people to date? Dating sites are out of the question. I could write a book on the crazies I have met on dating sites and the experiences I went through in meeting them. Treva, I hope you are here for my answer regarding dating sites. I think dating sites are a tool. And you may have had some very bad experiences, and while it's not okay, I understand. But there may be some ways that you can enhance your experience by becoming better at online dating. That being said, only about 30% of relationships actually start with online dating. So that means 70% start elsewhere. There are plenty of places, and it depends on what you like to do. I always highly recommend meetup groups. And Treva, I'm not sure where you are, but just go to meetup.com/your city, wherever you live, and look for groups in your area. And preferably look for singles groups, because what we tend to do is, when we're married, all of our friends are married. And when we get divorced or become widowed, most of our friends are married. So what we need to do is start developing a circle of single friends. So Treva, that's one of the best places, a meetup group. And they're generally free. They have a ton of different topics. It can be anything from, I have a meetup group in Kansas City that we meet once a month, and it's just a social group to connect singles, with other singles, and that's it. But there are groups that do hiking, canoeing, biking. They have crafts. They are book clubs, or museums, or whatever it is, whatever, drumming, dancing, music. There's any number of groups out there to join, and join several. Go to their events and see what you're most comfortable with, and go from there. I never discount going to a bar, especially if there's music and you like to dance. Go and dance. You don't have to be part of the bar scene. Go for the music, and you just never know. You might meet a nice guy that likes to dance. So, but think outside the box. What kind of guys are you looking for? Where are these kinds of guys going to be hanging out? Doing the things that they do. Could it be a golf course? Could it be a shooting range? Could it be, you know, a gym playing basketball? Whatever it is. Where are the guys hanging out? A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, she hangs out with a car group, and mostly exotic cars, but she drives a souped up little Mustang, and she goes to the racetrack and runs with the best of them in the amateur class. So it's culinary classes, any number of things that you could do, that if you have an interest, there's guys that have similar interest. Teresa says, I think it's fun dating more than one. Gina says, I can only date one at a Tuesday. I'm assuming that's one at a time, but we'll go from there. Lindy asks, is it okay? Let's see. Let's do this. Is it okay to act on that chemistry? Not want anything more? Lindy, if that's all you want is the chemistry and don't want a serious relationship long term, then sure. But if you're looking for a serious relationship, you're quickly going to tire from just the chemistry, because there's probably not going to be common interest. There's probably not going to be an intellectual, spiritual, emotional, or physical attraction. There probably would be a physical attraction, but the rest of it is not going to be beneficial for a long-term relationship. I mean, if you're just looking for and I'm not sure cheap sex is what you're looking for, but if you're just looking for something temporary, sure, that can be a lot of fun. But the novelty of that will wear off quickly. Jennifer says, I have found it takes 4 months to find if you can relate to them. Well, and it might. I would challenge you on that one just a little bit. If you have your must-have and deal breaker list, I think you can tell a lot more quickly than in 4 months. In fact, I think you can figure it out within 30 days. If you can have some real intelligent conversations in that first 30 days. I'm not one for dragging things out a long time. We have a finite time on this earth, and I think if we take too long at any decision making process, that we end up wasting a lot of time. When you initially know, let's say you say you found that it takes 4 months for you to find if you can relate to them. And there may be some. It takes time to develop a relationship, but I think a lot of that can happen a lot more quickly. But to each his own. I'm not going to condemn you for it. If that's how long it takes you, that's how long it takes you. Treva says, I'm actually very impressed that you pronounced my name correct. Oh, well, you're welcome. I'm glad. I don't always get that right. So let's see. Jennifer says, I have found that men I have met, they would jump on their vulnerable. Be careful if you are a widow. That's exactly right. And you have two types of guys when you're a widow. There's the kind that walk in the other direction because they don't know how to deal with a widow. And those that will prey on a widow because of her loneliness or her desire for companionship. Let's see. And Joyce says she doesn't put that she's a widow. She puts it that she's a single. And Joyce, that's a great point. That's a great way to use the a dating site and to help avoid some of the potential scammers, because scammers seem to zero in a lot more on widowers. It has a lot to do with the way your profile is written, but that it helps eliminate a lot of the quite a few of the scammers that will come along. Plus, it gives you something to share a little bit. I'm sorry for shaking my desk. Let's see. Nancy says, yes, I'm a widow. And for me, it took 13 years before I was ready to date again. See, Nancy, that's awesome that you were able to recognize that you weren't ready, and that you waited. I think that's absolutely terrific. Too many people don't recognize that, and they dive in way too quickly. Nancy or Treva says, "Do you like to dance?" I'm okay. I'm a mediocre dancer. I can freestyle a little bit, and I can do just very basic swing dance moves, and that's about it. Jennifer says, "Let's put this back up." God, this is great conversation here tonight. Jennifer, the bar scene. I found you have to spend time finding the people who only want to dance. A group I found a while back only wanted to dance. That way, I wasn't bothered by the men who wanted something else. Well, there you go. See, that's a perfect example. And in finding the groups that doing what you want to do, and then you can build friendships, and then friendships can grow from there. Dorothy says, I'm actually on a dating site only to talk to people right now. I'm not in a hurry to have a relationship, but I definitely love the meetup idea. Oh, very good. Yeah, meetup is it's a real cool tool. Again, everything online is just a tool. Lois says, that's me. I love going to happy hour for drinks and dancing. There you go. See? Skol. Nastrovia. Jennifer says, deal breaker list. I found I like to give them a chance. Jennifer, I don't. If you've got a deal breaker of mine, next. And the reason and the reason I say that is a deal. If a deal breaker if your deal breakers are non-negotiable, then if they have possess one of your deal breakers, then it should be over right there. You should say, yeah, you're a great guy, but this is a deal breaker for me. Just beyond, don't try to force something to, don't try to force the square peg into the round hole or vice versa. It doesn't work, at least not long term. You can make it go for a short period of time, but whatever that deal breaker is, you're going to regret it. And whether it's 4 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, you're going to say, yeah, I made a mistake. This isn't what I want. And so consequently, you've invested all this time in the wrong person. And that's why I'm such a big fan of your must-have. And your must-have list is a non-negotiable list of characteristics. If there's a bunch of would-be nice-to-haves, that goes on a different list. Go put it somewhere else. But the deal breakers, the must-haves are non-negotiable. The deal breakers are non-negotiable. I can't tell you the number of women that I've met that have had cats, and once I found out they had a cat, nope, we're done. And it's cats are fine animals for some people. I don't like cats, and I just don't want them in my life. And if some of you out there are cat lovers, God love you, but it's not my animal. And most animals aren't. I love dogs, and so I'm not an animal hater. It's just I don't want the work and the mess and all the other stuff related to most other animals. So let's see. Let's see. Shar says, I agree with that. time is finite, and the older you get, yep, 13 years will be knocking at 90. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and that can be, your pictures don't reflect that. Not at all. Treva says, I live in Dallas, Texas. So if anyone out there knows of a group that I might could hook up, feel free to let me know. Again, Treva, go to Meetup. If you're in the Dallas area, oh my gosh, there's probably a couple of thousand Meetup groups in the area. So it's it's there's so many possibilities there. You're in such a huge metropolitan area that you should have no problem finding a good group there. Teresa says, I don't like cats either. Well, there you go. We have something in common. Shar says, it's true though. I am 74 and that makes me think more about time. Exactly. And I'm not far behind you, Shar. And since I lost my dad, I don't know, 3.5 years ago, it has caused me to think about mortality a little more deeply, and taking care of my daughter and getting things prepared for, and recognizing that, yeah, I've probably got 20-25 years maybe, and that's it. Then it's all over, and then it's time to take the big dirt nap. And so we have to think about those things. And because most of us are on that shorter end of the lifeline, that's what makes it all that much more critical to make better decisions about the people we date. And personally, I like to be more decisive, because I spent 25 years with excuse me, I am just, my sinuses are kicking in here. So I apologize. I spent 25 years. So that's effectively, at the time, it was about half my life with this one person. And now with let's say 25 years left, I'd rather spend the next 20 looking, and 5 extraordinary years, as opposed to the next 25 years with something that's mediocre. Well, Shar, you're getting all kinds of compliments here. Dorothy says, you look so young. And hey, Barb, thanks for joining. Good to see you here. Cheers to you also. And it's a happy hour, a virtual happy hour. So I hope you have your cocktail with you. So anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope things are good in Chicago for you, or the Chicagoland area. What else, folks? Ladies, you've been, Antonio's the only guy that's chimed in here. And Antonio, I hope I've answered your question. And ladies, I hope I've answered your questions, and addressed your comments to your satisfaction. There you go. Barb is having a Sauv Blanc. There you go. I'm having my bourbon and Diet Dr. Pepper. Shar says, thanks for all of your kind comments, ladies. So there you go. She's putting it back out there for you. So anyway, I hope you all have enjoyed this. Here's an interesting question. How many dates do you go on before sex? That's a good question. Before sex is involved, and that's still a good question. statistically, 80% of couples are going to end up in bed on or before the 8th date. Scripturally speaking, marriage is when sex should be involved. And is that in today's society? I know that's not likely to happen. It happens for less than 5% of couples that actually wait. So biologically, the longer you wait to have sex, the more likely you are to develop a strong relationship. And it's just because primarily, both men and women go biological when the clothes come off. Actually, they start going biological when you start kissing passionately. But what happens? Men tend to shut down, and we can say, "Yep, this is wrong. No, we shouldn't be doing this." And then clothes come off, and boom, it's Katie bar the door. So. The longer you can wait, the longer you hold off. I have friends that have a 90-day rule. I've got friends that have 120 or 180 day. Got to go 6 months before sex. And if he waits that long, great. But what happens is you get to know each other intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, much more so than jumping into bed too quickly. I'm sure it's happened to most of you that you end up sleeping with someone, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next morning saying, "Oh my Lord, what did I do? This isn't, I shouldn't have done there." Or the relationship goes for a little bit longer, and you've got these emotions. You've got these emotions going, and you're connecting physically and just at a very high level emotionally, and then all of a sudden you start realizing intellectually and spiritually you're not a good fit, or there's no chemistry other than the physical connection. So the longer you can wait, the better off you are. Let's see. Nancy says, "Can you recommend a few reputable dating sites?" I can, and it depends on what you're doing, what you're looking for, and one of the dating sites obviously is Match, because they just have the most people there. So your odds are much better on that site of finding somebody. Sorry. Sorry. To the magic spin there. Let's see. So there's Match. There are sites like Zoosk. OkCupid seems to have a pretty decent algorithm. Our Time, one of the sites that I'm on right now that I like because I travel, and there aren't as many people on it, but because I travel, it opens me up to people in that location wherever I may be traveling through. And that's a site called Bumble. It's a swipe right, swipe left type thing. There's minimal information, but and the lady has to initiate contact. So that's one of the reasons I like it, because she has to have an interest. I'm not shooting out a dozen emails or 100 emails for a 1 or 2 or 3% response rate. So check into some of those and see what you think. Jennifer says, "What about addressing people who lie? How do you?" Let's see. Let's put this one up. What about addressing people who lie? How do you approach them? I usually ignore it. Well, and you'll have to explain a little bit more about people who lie. If you're catching somebody in a lie, and you're new in a relationship, let's just move on. Nobody wants to be with a liar. nobody wants to be with a cheat. And so, unless it's something extremely extremely rare, or for whatever reason they're withholding the truth from you, it's still a lie. And I'm not a big fan of that. If you lie, yeah, we should move on. And thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate that. Sue says that was a great question. Teresa. Barb says that was a great question. Dorothy says that was a great answer. Which one? And Teresa says, and your heart gets involved. That's right. You have sex too soon. Yeah, your heart gets involved, and it becomes much harder to extricate yourself from a bad relationship. Nancy says, yes, Rick, I love your answer to Teresa. I wish there were more men like you out there or near me. Well, I think there are, Nancy. It's just we're probably fewer and farther than between than I would like to think. How many dates to sex? And that's, Jennifer, that's up to you. And she says, I agree. You can, the longer you can wait, the better. That's exactly right. Well, and Jennifer says Match is not a good site. She had a problem with her profile being hacked. That can happen, but that can happen on any site. It's not just Match. I like Match just for the volume. I'm not on there anymore, but let's show this one here. Nancy says, I think not getting into bed too soon will keep you more alert to red flags, especially emotionally unavailable people. That's exactly right. That the longer you can spend out of bed, the better off you're going to be. Let's see. Jennifer says, I ended up biting him because he only wanted to demean me. Okay. I'm not sure quite what to do with that. He probably had it coming. And everybody's kind of agreeing with Teresa, waiting on sex. Jennifer, the brother of him and his wife only wanted to demean her. She was mentally, I'm assuming that's challenged because of her husband. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that. I'm not quite sure what to do with that one, Jennifer. So anyway. Oh, I see. He and his brother wanted to argue. So yeah, those are kinds of relationships that you need to dodge. When you walk away, you've dodged a bullet. So, how someone that you want to date or you are dating reacts or interacts with family or other people. How they treat wait staff, how they treat others around them will be a good sign of how they intend to treat you eventually. They may be on their best behavior with you right now, but it's going to be your turn sooner or later. Teresa says, how can, let's see, let me just put this up. It's easier to read here. How can be kind to and tell a man who is sweet you go out with thinks you will pay him for dinner with sex. If that's the case, then and again, that's why, especially early on, coffee and cocktails, and that's typically a first, second, or third date type thing. But if it persists, walk away, because that's all he's there for. And as soon as he has sex with you, he's going to be gone. There's a line in the movie Hitch. where he's talking with a deviant potential client and says, "Yeah, I'm just into get in, get off, and get out." And if that's the kind of guy he is, then I wouldn't date. I wouldn't give him the opportunity for another date. Let's see. Nancy says, "Thanks for let's see. Put this up here. Thanks for this evening. Enjoyed the Q&A. A great weekend to all." Thanks, Nancy. Thanks for joining us. And with that, it's we've been here for an hour, and it's probably time to wrap it up and let all of you get on with your weekend. But thank you for joining me and bringing your cocktails along and your wine and your Diet Coke or your Coke and your iced tea, and I will see you again on Monday for Monday Mastery live at 5, and that's Central Time. Where I'm not sure what the topic is yet. The weekend hasn't passed, and so I'll figure that out over the weekend as questions pop up or things come in. It's so great to see you all. Barb, it was great to see you. Shar, glad you're here. Teresa, Nancy, Jennifer. Let's see who else was here. Lindy, Nancy. Let's see if I can catch everybody. Dorothy and Treva and Lois. Glad you all guys if I missed somebody, I am terribly. Gina, thank you for joining in. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad this was interesting for you guys. And you never know, maybe we'll just continue this on Monday, because this was, if I'm sharing this kind of information, this is beneficial for you. We can continue this conversation. We'll see how it goes. Otherwise, I will. Didn't I say you, Barb? I'm sorry. I thought I mentioned you first. I'm sorry. It's so good to hear from you. I hope things are going well for you in Chicago. And oh, Nancy, there's another Nancy. Thank you. So we'll see you all Monday for another Monday Mastery. Have a great and blessed weekend. I love you guys. Thanks for joining in, and we'll have a great weekend. I already said that. How many times can I repeat it? I love you guys. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you on Monday.